Most men spend their whole lives believing attraction is about looks, money, or saying the perfect words. They think women fall for confidence that is loud, flashy, and impossible to ignore. But real emotional attachment rarely starts that way. Most women remember how a man made them feel when nobody else was paying attention. They remember the calmness in his voice during their worst day. They remember the way he noticed small changes in their mood without being told. And sometimes, that emotional feeling becomes stronger than physical attraction itself. I remember a man once saying he loved a woman more than anyone he had ever met, but he could never understand why she stayed emotionally attached to him even after years of mistakes, distance, and heartbreak. He wasn't rich. He wasn't the most handsome man in the room. In fact, he admitted he had many flaws. But one thing he did differently was that he listened to her in a world where everybody else only waited for their turn to speak. When she talked about her childhood pain, he didn't laugh or change the subject. When she became insecure, he didn't call her crazy. When she cried, he didn't act uncomfortable or weak for comforting her. He stayed. And people underestimate what staying means in someone's emotional life. In a generation full of temporary attention and fake affection, consistency feels like love. The strange thing about emotional attachment is that it grows quietly. It's not always built during expensive dates or romantic speeches. Sometimes it's built at 2 a.m. during conversations about fears nobody else knows about. Sometimes it's built when someone notices your silence instead of only enjoying your happiness. A woman may forget the compliments a man gave her, but she never forgets how safe she felt opening her heart around him. That's why heartbreak becomes so painful. People think they miss the person, but many times they miss the emotional safety they felt with that person. They miss being understood without explaining every emotion. They miss feeling chosen. And when that connection suddenly disappears, it feels like losing a part of yourself. There was a woman who once said, "I knew he wasn't perfect, but he made me feel seen." That sentence explains why emotional attachment becomes so dangerous sometimes. Because once someone becomes your emotional comfort, your heart starts depending on them in ways you don't even notice. Their texts affect your mood. Their attention controls your peace. Their absence creates anxiety. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop asking yourself whether they are good for you. You only ask whether they still want you. That is where many people lose themselves in love. Real love should never force you to beg for basic care. But emotionally attached people often ignore red flags because they are addicted to the feeling of connection. They keep replaying old memories in their mind, hoping the person will become who they used to be. They stay loyal to potential while their heart keeps breaking in reality. And the painful truth is this: sometimes the same person who healed your loneliness becomes the reason for your sadness. But heartbreak teaches lessons that comfort never could. It teaches you that attention is not the same as genuine love. It teaches you that emotional connection should not cost your self-respect. And most importantly, it teaches you that your value cannot depend on how deeply someone chooses to love you. Many people change after emotional pain. Some become colder. Some stop trusting completely. But some people grow in a different way. They finally understand that love is not about chasing validation anymore. They stop trying to earn affection by overgiving. They stop shrinking themselves just to keep someone interested. And for the first time in their life, they realize they deserve relationships where they feel calm instead of emotionally exhausted. That kind of self-growth changes everything. Because when a person truly values themselves, their energy becomes different. They stop forcing connections. They stop begging for replies. They stop accepting half-love just because they are afraid of being alone. And strangely, that confidence becomes attractive in a deeper way than looks ever could. The truth is, most women are not emotionally attached to perfection. They become attached to emotional presence, to honesty, to feeling understood, to feel emotionally safe enough to remove the mask they wear around the rest of the world. That kind of connection touches the soul before it ever touches the body. And if you ever find someone who makes you feel emotionally safe, appreciated, and respected without making you question your worth every day, protect that connection carefully. Because real emotional intimacy is rare now. Most people know how to flirt, but very few know how to truly care. At the end of the day, people may forget your appearance, your money, or your state. Tuss, but they never forget the person who made their heart feel safe when the world made them feel alone. One of the most painful things about love is that people often fall in love with consistency that was never meant to last. In the beginning, everything feels real. The late night calls, the long emotional conversations, the attention, the affection, the way someone looks at you like you matter more than anyone else in the world. It feels impossible to fake. And that is why heartbreak becomes so confusing later, because the same person who once made you feel deeply wanted slowly becomes distant like you meant nothing at all. There was a man who once said he never planned to fall in love. He thought he was just enjoying someone's company, but little by little, that woman became part of his daily life. Her messages became the first thing he checked in the morning. Her voice became the comfort he needed after stressful days. He started imagining a future without even realizing it. And that's how emotional attachment begins, sometimes quietly, slowly, without warning. The dangerous part is that not everyone loves with the same depth. Some people love temporarily. Some people love only when it feels exciting. Some people love attention more than they love the actual person giving it. And when two people enter a relationship with different emotional intentions, someone eventually gets hurt. At first, he ignored the signs. She became colder little by little. Replies became shorter. Excuses became more common. The emotional energy she once gave freely started feeling forced. But because he loved her deeply, he kept making excuses for her behavior. That's what emotionally attached people do. They hold on to memories tighter than reality. They keep remembering how beautiful things used to feel instead of accepting how painful things have become. And sometimes the hardest heartbreak is not losing someone suddenly. It's feeling them slowly stop loving you while you are there. Till trying your hardest to save the relationship, he began blaming himself for everything. He thought maybe he was not attractive enough anymore. Maybe he cared too much. Maybe he became boring. That's what heartbreak does to people. It makes them question their worth over someone else's inability to love properly. The truth is, many people stay in painful relationships because they are emotionally addicted to the version of the person they met in the beginning. They keep hoping the affection will return. They replay old conversations in their mind like emotional prisoners trapped inside happier memories. And every small moment of attention feels like hope again. One text message can make them forget weeks of neglect. That cycle destroys people slowly. There are relationships where one person gives love honestly while the other only enjoys feeling admired. One person is emotionally invested while the other is emotionally entertained. And when the relationship ends, the person who loved genuinely carries scars that last for years. A woman once said something heartbreaking after her relationship ended. She said, "I don't miss him anymore. I miss the person I became when I thought I was loved." That sentence explains emotional heartbreak perfectly, because real pain is not always losing someone. Sometimes it's realizing the love you were fighting for was never as real as you believed. But pain changes people in powerful ways too. After enough disappointment, people start understanding things they once ignored. They realize love should not feel like constant confusion. They realize they should not have to beg for honesty, effort, or reassurance. They understand that someone who truly loves you will not keep making you feel unwanted every single day. Healing is strange because it happens slowly. At first, the silence hurts. The memories hurt. Everything reminds you of them. Songs, places, random conversations, all of it feels heavy. You keep checking your phone, hoping their name appears again. And even when you know they hurt you, part of your heart still wants them back because emotional attachment does not disappear overnight. But eventually something changes. One day you wake up and realize you survived days you thought would destroy you. You realize the person you cried over every night no longer controls your peace. Their absence stops feeling like death and starts feeling like freedom. And slowly your self-worth begins returning. You start loving yourself in ways you expected someone else to love you. You stop chasing people who give mixed signals. You stop over-explaining your value. You stop accepting relationships where effort feels one-sided. And that growth is powerful because heartbreak either destroys your identity or rebuilds it stronger than before. The saddest truth about love is that good people often get hurt the most because they love honestly. They see potential in people. They forgive too much. They stay loyal even after being disappointed repeatedly. But eventually life teaches them that loyalty without respect becomes self-destruction. And maybe that's one of the deepest lessons about emotional attachment. Not everyone who enters your life deserves permanent access to your heart. Some people come into your life only to teach you what love should never feel like. They teach you the importance of boundaries, self-respect, and emotional honesty. They force you to stop abandoning yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. Because real love does not leave you constantly anxious, confused, or emotionally exhausted. Real love feels safe, clear, honest, mutual. And the moment you finally understand that, you stop begging for temporary attention from people who were never capable of giving permanent love. Sometimes losing the wrong person is the first step toward finally finding yourself again. There comes a moment in many people's lives when they get tired of chasing love that never fully chooses. Ease them. They get tired of overthinking messages, waiting for calls, trying harder, loving deeper, and still feeling emotionally empty. And the painful part is that most people don't realize how much they have lost themselves until the relationship finally ends and they are forced to sit alone with their own thoughts. There was a woman who once gave everything to someone she loved. She was patient during his bad moods, understanding during his emotional distance, loyal during moments when he gave her reasons to walk away. She believed love meant sacrifice. She believed if she loved hard enough, eventually he would realize her value and love her the same way back. But instead, the more she ignored her own needs, the more invisible she became inside the relationship. That's the dangerous thing about emotional attachment. Sometimes people become so focused on keeping someone else happy that they slowly abandon themselves in the process. She used to check her phone constantly, hoping for our attention from the same person who once gave it freely. A simple text from him could change her mood instantly. If he sounded cold, her whole day felt heavy. If he showed affection, she felt alive again. Her emotional peace was completely controlled by someone else's behavior. And without realizing it, she had handed another person the power over her happiness. Many people live like this in relationships. They think love means enduring emotional pain quietly. They think begging for consistency is normal. They think anxiety is proof of deep feelings. But real love was never supposed to feel like emotional survival every single day. The hardest lesson she learned was understanding that you cannot force someone to value you by loving them harder. You cannot convince someone to choose you by destroying your own self-respect. And sometimes, the more available you make yourself to emotionally unavailable people, the less they appreciate your presence. When the relationship finally ended, she felt broken in ways words could not explain. Not because she lost him, but because she lost herself while trying to keep him. She looked in the mirror one day and realized she no longer recognized the person she had become. The confident woman who once knew her worth had turned into someone constantly seeking reassurance from another human being. Heartbreak has a strange way of exposing truths we spend years avoiding. At first, she blamed herself for everything. She replayed conversations in her head every night, wondering what she could have done differently. She thought maybe she asked for too much. Maybe she loved too deeply. Maybe she wasn't enough. But healing slowly taught her something powerful. The right person will never make you feel difficult for asking for basic love, respect, and emotional effort. And that realization changed her life completely. She stopped chasing people who only loved her when it was convenient. She stopped begging for replies that took hours from people who were always online for everyone else. She stopped trying to prove her worth to people determined to misunderstand her. Most importantly, she started giving herself the love she once desperately searched for in others. That's when her energy changed. Not because she became cold or emotionless, but because she finally understood her value beyond relationships. She learned how to enjoy her own company again. She learned that peace feels better than emotional chaos disguised as passion. She stopped romanticizing inconsistency and started appreciating emotional maturity instead. And strangely, the moment she stopped chasing validation, people began seeing her differently. Confidence built through pain carries a different kind of beauty. It's quiet, calm, and powerful. It's the energy of someone who survived emotional storms and still chose softness instead of bitterness. There is something deeply attractive about people who know their worth without needing to announce it. They no longer compete for attention. They no longer beg to be loved correctly. They simply walk away from situations that disturb their peace. That kind of self-respect changes relationships completely. Because healthy love is not about control, manipulation, or emotional games. Real connection happens when two people feel emotionally safe with each other, when honesty exists without fear, when affection feels natural instead of forced, when both people choose each other consistently, not only when it's convenient. Many people confuse obsession with love because they grew up believing emotional suffering is romantic. But true love does not constantly leave you questioning your value. It does not make you feel lonely while lying next to someone. It does not punish vulnerability or weaponize your feelings against you. Real love brings peace to your nervous system, not permanent anxiety. And maybe the most beautiful part of healing is realizing you do not need someone else to compensate let you anymore. Love becomes healthier when it is shared between two whole people instead of two emotionally starving hearts trying to rescue each other. The woman who once cried herself to sleep over being ignored eventually became someone who protected her peace more than temporary affection. She no longer feared losing people because she finally understood something deeper. Losing yourself is far more painful than losing a relationship. And once a person truly learns their worth, they stop settling for love that asks them to abandon it.